Nigeria will go into another general elections in 2023 to elect a new president and other leaders into political positions. But what kind of leader will Nigerians embrace at this time? Welcome to GuardianTalks, and with me is a strategic leadership expert, a lawyer and an author, Dr. Toye Sobande. So we'll be discussing leadership skills, leadership deficiencies, and mapping out strategies that are necessary to ensuring that we have what it takes, to have that leadership that is needed both in the economy, in politics, in the organization, and anywhere else leadership is needed. What kind of leadership do you think that we need at this time in our economy?
Largely in this part of our world, we've not had sufficient experience as to what leadership is about. So it's actually very difficult for people to be able to describe what kind of leadership we want. Why? We've been used to a form of governance that I call rulership. And most journalists have actually used that word. When they are referring to past head of state, they say he ruled Nigeria, he ruled Nigeria, the number of people that ruled Nigeria. That means there's something wrong in the semantics, especially with the use of the word. Leadership is different from leaders. So when you say a leader and when you say leadership, there are two different things. In one part where you talk about a leader, you are talking about a person who occupies a position by virtue of the responsibility that has been conferred on him to take responsibility for certain things. But when you talk about leadership talks about a relationship between a leader and followers with an agreement that they've come together to draw up strategic objectives and to realize a desirable goal or a desirable future, and to understand that there are certain requirements for the realization of those objectives, and where the leader fails, the follower can call him to question or even demote him if he does not perform or replace him with someone else. That is when you are talking about leadership. So when we now come back to the question you asked me, that what kind of leadership do we want in Nigeria? We want a leadership that talks to the people, that empathizes with the people. We want a leadership that is able to look into the eyes of the people and give them hope, give them encouragement in the midst of the uncertainty. Help those who are in despair understand that tomorrow will be better. We are working hard. Let's just be patient. It's a leader who communicates that, look, let's make sacrifice. I'm not asking you to make sacrifice. I will also make sacrifices. Let's make sacrifices together so that we can better the future of our country and our children's children. But the attitude of the ruler is different. The ruler doesn't communicate with the people. They don't owe you any explanation. They just do what they think is best for you, and they don't care whether you accept it or not. Let's look at the selection process of leadership and rulership. In rulership, it's an imposition. You don't have a choice. The electoral system is determined and dictated by a few people. But in leadership, it involves a larger number of people, where people are allowed to go through the electoral process. They are not disenfranchised. They can vote and be voted for. They can afford to buy the electoral form and not be excluded by virtue of the fact that the forms are too expensive for them to purchase. People can go to the ballot box and not be afraid that the tout will chase them. They can vote and they know the voting is credible. They know the counting is credible. They know the result is credible and it will be acceptable. In the rulership dimension, people get frustrated in order to be able to even register to vote, let alone vote. On the day of the election, the electoral machines are not even working. The votes are not credible. By the time the vote is counted, the counted vote is much more than the number of people that actually registered to vote. And there are myriads of court cases that lines up and there's a lot of contestation. So I took time to explain that for us to understand that before we begin to talk about the kind of leadership we want, we must understand what leadership is about. We must understand what makes a leader and what makes a ruler. We must understand the responsibility of leadership and the responsibility of followership. It is that relationship between the leaders and the followership that makes leadership.
So what are we doing wrong, in this part of our world, in Africa, compared to other nations where leadership works?
One of the things we started doing wrong was that after independence, we copied a system of government from our colonial masters, which is the parliamentary system. We practiced it for a while, then later we jettisoned it and borrowed from the United States the presidential system. So what we've been doing wrong largely is to copy and paste different systems of government. We've been copying and pasting and trying to apply it without understanding that the copying and the pasting is contextual. There's a context to which what you have copied works. For example, I have a friend who is a lawyer who had worked in legislative drafting and was telling me of some of the major organizations and institutions that were set up and how they were the ones who worked on the law that established those commissions. He said they literally just borrowed some books, some law books from England, copied it and put it together, changed some words and put it, that's it. So largely what we've been doing is to copy and paste without understanding the spirit behind it, the context. The African context, the Nigerian context is different from where you are copying those things from. And sometimes when you copy, you should copy right. We don't copy right sometimes. We've copied the presidential system of government from the US, but yet our constitution is not a federal constitution. It's pretending to be a federal constitution. Our governance structure looks like a federal structure, but it's not federal. How do I know? Look at the provisions of the Constitution on exclusive and concurrent list. It gives more power to the center. The current Constitution of Nigeria gives more power to the center and makes the federating units very weak. That is not a federal structure. So how can you say you are proud? So those are the basic things that we are doing. So systemically, we are deficient, such that the system cannot produce the kind of leadership Nigerians are aspiring to have until we change the system. Until we copyright, until we don't even need to copy anymore. We have grown to the age whereby we can develop our own leadership system that is peculiar to our orientation, our prevailing mental model, which is our culture. That is peculiar to our needs, then that is peculiar to the kind of future we want to have for our nation.
So, will I say finally, what would be your advice, to the country as we choose a new leader?
My advice is,
because presidency is actually
counterintuitive. It's what? It's strategic.
Yes, the presidency.
I have a contrary perspective. I think we have over concentrated on the central government too much. That it had made the federating unit so weak, and that's why government policies at the center is not effective at the local level. Yes. Right now, we made the central government so powerful, and that's not. If you are serious about development, it should be the other way around. The federating units are the ones who are working, who are generating the resources. Yeah. And they are the ones who need the resources for their own sustainability, not at the center. And that's where there's a lot of wastage at the center. Because people who did not contribute to those resources, who did not develop it, are benefiting much more than the people who own it. And which is unfair. That's another issue, our justice system. Yeah. It makes people feel helpless here. The helplessness is so deep that before, nobody even, before people take pride in becoming and, agitating over this issue, singing, fighting, but, it's like people have sacrificed their lives. The life of Ken Saro-Wiwa, the lives of Fela, they've sang about it, they've talked about it. They were like prophets in their time. And, it's so frustrating that even members of their family who lost the loved ones, like the Moshood Abiola family, they are so discouraged that they can't afford to lose anybody. So even other family members are saying, look, even me, that I've been talking about political issues, I've been getting family members, I hope you are not running for political office, so we want you alive, all sorts of things, those things. So what I tell people is, it's too late for us to be reacting over 2023 elections. They determine who the president will be. They're just playing out the script. They've done their plan a long time ago. So my word to Nigerians is that Nigerians will lower their expectations. Nothing significant is going to happen. It will only take the intervention of God. Yes. And in this instance, I think God will not intervene if we don't intervene. And the only intervention Nigerians can have or can take up is to go and collect their PVCs. Go, and no matter how frustrating it is, particularly the elites, particularly the middle class, even there's no middle class, particularly those of us who are career professionals. We complain too much. I've spoken to a good number of my friends. They all don't have PVCs. You need to have it. One said he had never voted in the last 15, 16 years. Go and collect your PVC and vote. and make sure your vote counts. Let's go out en masse. That is one civic responsibility that you owe for the prosperity of this nation. If you want this nation to prosper, take your PVC and vote. Listen to the debate. Listen to them. Let's call them out. Let's hold them by their word. Because our leaders are not accountable. They get away with the things because of the attitude of our people. We don't hold them accountable. We don't hold them accountable. To hold them accountable, we need to elect the proper people who are to go to the legislature, the Senate, and the House of Assembly. But you know what? I've been voting in this country for some years. None of them, I don't even know them. Except the one for my constituency. I don't know them. And it's not their fault that I don't know them. It's my own fault. So we have to take responsibility. A lot of us have to go. I've visited my senator's office several times to want to engage, to submit a petition. During the Bring Back Our Girls crisis when we started, in those days before it became I took a petition down there. The senator refused to see or acknowledge and anything. We sent it to Abuja, we made phone calls, we did everything we were supposed to do. But, and that's the kind of leadership that we have. Because one critical issue that I highlighted and identified in my book is that our cultural disposition to leadership has this hierarchical structure where there's a power distance between the leader and the follower. And everything is based on authority. It's whatever the lead, quote and unquote, the leader says that the follower will do. So when you have leaders with that kind of orientation, who you were elected to attend to people's interests so that you can present their interests at the legislature, they are not even available to talk to them. So Nigerians have to demand that this time around. We have to demand that those who are in the legislature, they are very important. And we've done well this time around with social media. When we put pressure on them over the electoral bill, we fired them and they obeyed. We need to do more. We don't fire them only on social media. Let's also fire them in every space. Let's fire them through the elections, through the ballot box.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sobande. It's really nice to have you here in our studios. We've heard it all. He has spoken so much about leadership and deficiencies that we have faced in our economy. And we hope that if we can put most of all that we have heard today in practice, we will begin to see results, even though while we still even have God, there with us. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you.
We hope to have you some other time.
Anytime.
Thank you. We've heard it all. For you out there as a Nigerian, be a party member, have your PVC. Please vote in the coming 2023 elections. Let your voices be heard. Do not just be on social media castigating and clamoring for change. Be the voice that you be the change that you want in our society by voting and voting right. Thank you, and that's it on Guardian Talks today. Bye for now.